Hello, and welcome to all the One Piece fans. Today I'm going to be sharing my reaction highlights of episode 29 and 30 with you all. Just a big shout out to Sandro, Gonzalez, Cassiano. Thank you so much for being a level 4 patron. You are a new patron and I'm really grateful for the support. I wanted to dedicate this video to you. The end of the Bharati arc. It's an arc I really loved a lot. I really love the characters and I'm gonna miss so many of them. But yeah, before I jumped into my reaction highlights and then review, I wanted to say a big thank you to Sandro. I really appreciate it. I couldn't be doing what I'm doing without your support. One more thing before I jump in, I'm not wearing any makeup today because tomorrow morning, well, I'm wearing lip gloss, I'm wearing colored contacts, but I'm not wearing any other makeup, so I'm feeling really naked, but it's okay. I just wanted to say I'm not putting any makeup on today because tomorrow morning I'm actually doing my very first cosplay, or trying my very first cosplay ever, so I didn't want to put on any makeup today because I want to do full face makeup. Not full face makeup, like I never go overboard with makeup, but I work through the evenings. Like I sleep during the day and I work at night because it's the best time for my internet in South Africa. Otherwise, it's already pretty shit most of the time, but I shouldn't say that. I'm making it worse. But I just think it's better in the evening. So yeah, I've adjusted my sleep schedule so that I basically work from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Tomorrow specifically, I will be staying up later because I'm doing the photo shoot. So it's gonna be from around 6 a.m. when the sun comes up. So it's gonna be like a sunrise photo shoot, and I'm going to be cosplaying not someone from One Piece yet. I am planning to do some One Piece cosplays in the future. But yeah, this is my very first cosplay. I was just hoping to hear from you guys if you wanted me to cosplay any of the characters from One Piece that I know now. Don't obviously suggest anyone that I don't know. I'd love to hear suggestions from you guys. Who would you like to see me cosplay as? Me specifically, because I know, well, I guess you can nominate your favorite character. It doesn't really matter if you think it'll suit me or whatever. Just nominate your favorite character. I will see who gets the most votes. Sorry for the long intro. Once again, thank you, Sandro. Without further ado, let's jump into my reaction highlights and then my review. Let's go. That is loud. Can you hear me? Ooh, punchy. Oh my god. He's got such an evil, like, naughty, evil look. Like, listen, it's a bass. A bomb on a stick. A bomb on a stick is still pretty intimidating. Just saying. Boo. Whoa. This man has gadgets for... Yeah, because this is what happened. But I know what he really did for him. And he'll come back and tell you all about it. She's going there with her bag of treasure in her hand. Does she owe this man Arlong something? Oh, that's not a bag of treasure, that's just her backpack. Never mind. But that was my thought from the beginning, because she cares so much about money. It felt like she had some kind of debt. Maybe her family had some kind of debt. I don't know, but I'll find out in the next arc. Okay, and here we go. Episode 29. My notes. The notes that I wrote last night after watching these 2 episodes. So, for those of you that don't know, I watch 2 episodes, sometimes 3 whenever I can. And then I edit, and while I'm editing, I make my notes at the same time. And then I record the review part the next day, edit and upload for YouTube, and yeah, that's how it works. Okay, so let's start with episode 29, Outcome of a Deadly Battle, the Inner Spear. It's a theme I think is very important for the anime, but I guess we'll only know that if it gets referenced back to at any point. But I feel like Zeph's monologue about Luffy's inner spear already points at the fact that it is a very important theme. Just a quick note on the inner spear phrase that Zev has been mentioning for a while now. I talked to a couple of patrons about it, and after looking at some alternative subtitles translations, it seems like your inner spear, according to Zev, is basically your faith in yourself, your ambition, conviction, and the like. So it's the things inside yourself. Wait, I'll actually write about it, let me not just babble. Probably like the weapon of your heart that helps you to keep fighting despite the challenges life throws onto your path. Since he mentioned that Sanji is letting a stupid reason allow his spear to be held back, Sanji's dream or ambition to find all blue could be his spear. In other words, his reason to keep fighting or moving forward. We all need something to live for, do we not? I really like that phrase. We all need something to live for, do we not? If you had to think of what would be your inner spear, do you feel like you have an inner spear? What would that inner spear be? For me, I think my inner spear would be, if my inner spear is something that I use to help me overcome challenges, something that I use to keep moving forward, despite how difficult things may get, despite death trying to knock you down. Like I've said in the past, we don't face the same kind of challenges that these pirates do. Our challenges don't necessarily mean life or death for, the average person. But if we did have a spear that helped us to keep fighting forward despite, the Don Kriegs in our life trying to knock us down, what would your spear be? I think my inner spear would be my ability to see something different, or to maybe even want something different from most people in life. Like most people, the friends I had in high school, they all followed this pattern that we were told to follow. And I think what made me different is maybe that's my spirit. The fact that I'm different. I would even go so far as to say the social anxiety that I've experienced in my life has been a spear in a sense for me, because it has held me back from trying to be like other people, because I couldn't even be with other people. So I always had to kind of just find my own path, do my own thing, and that has shaped a very different future in my mind compared to the futures that other people my age, other people from my cultural background, they've seen a certain future for themselves based on social convention, whereas I have never been able to see that for myself. So maybe it is the fact that I am so different, the fact that even my social anxiety, those things have been my weapons in life. But I mean, I could be reading way too much into this, but I don't really care. I love thinking about these things and talking about them with you guys and understanding, your thoughts on what's your spear, because these kind of things is the stuff that links our experience with One Piece. That's why One Piece touches so many people, and that's, even though we're not the same, we can connect through this anime, and yeah, I love talking about it. I love hearing your thoughts on it. Okay, so episode 29 starts out with the continuation of the fight between Luffy and Don Krieg. Don keeps talking about the best crafted equipment, the greatest power and most powerful weapons as being the means to be recognized as a strong person, or the strongest person. This is quite ironic since at the end of the episode, oh, I didn't type that properly. Since at the end of the episode, Luffy beat him without all the fancy weapons, armor, and deceptions. Granted, Luffy does have the power of the devil fruit, however, so it's not so much that having gadgets and special tricks doesn't make you a strong person. I think what the anime is getting at here, maybe, is if you don't have the fancy spear, the tricks to pull, and the expensive armor, what do you have left on the inside to fight with? For Luffy, that's the power of the devil fruit. But I can guarantee you, even if Luffy didn't have that, he would have something else on the inside that drives him forward. It is not the devil fruit power that makes Luffy who he is. You know, Luffy was Luffy before that, and he would still be Luffy without the power of the devil fruit. At least that's the kind of person I have seen him to be up to now. Would he have defeated Don Krieg? I don't know if he didn't have the power of the devil fruit, but I also don't think he would have given up. Yeah, we definitely can't know, but my point is that the anime is not necessarily telling you that, you know, fancy spears and armor isn't power. It's just telling you that that's not the only thing you need. There's many sources of power, and the most strong power comes from within. The amount of loyalty that Krieg's men show him, especially Gin, despite the way he treats them, is still proof that even with dirty tricks and fake power, given to you only by using expensive armor, exploding spears, and a pretty bad attitude, can still inspire or maybe scare a massive amount of people to be obedient to you and your cause. I absolutely love the above image of Luffy just after he breaks through Krieg's armor. His move that I saw in this episode, Gomu Gomu no Sledgehammer, was an awesome move. I'm kind of regretting not writing down every move Luffy has done so far. These are the ones I remember. Gomu Gomu no Gatling Gun, Gomu Gomu no Pistol, Gomu Gomu no Bazooka, which is also an awesome one. Which ones am I forgetting that I have already seen? Please don't tell me any ones that I haven't seen yet. Not that it really matters, because even if I know the name, it's still going to be exciting to see it for the first time, but, you know, don't spoil it if you don't have to. I'm currently editing the part where Zeph tells Sanji that Luffy isn't going to be coming back up by himself after he fell in the water. Those who have the power of the devil fruit can't swim, so that's why they sink like a hammer, referring to Krieg calling Luffy Hammer Boy all the time. I squeal a little too loudly for my own comfort at this point, but I really love how Sanji rushes to take off his jacket and his shoes. Like, I don't know why, it really made me so excited to see Sanji care so much about saving Luffy. Like, I don't know, that scene was just so good. Even thinking about it, I get excited because he's so anxious. Like, he's like, oh my gosh, old man, and then he's like, what the fuck, it'll take us all big clothes, and he jumps in, and I don't know what about that scene made me love it so much. Don't ask me why this makes me so damn happy, because I don't really know. I guess I'm kind of a sucker for strong bonds between friends, and since I know Sanji joins the crew, I'm just excited to see him be worried about Luffy, his future captain. Sanji, while underwater to save Luffy, seems really worried about him, saying or thinking, hey, hang in there, aren't you the one who refuses to die? Isn't that what you believe in? Then he thinks of the moments when Luffy and Zoro kept pushing forward even when things looked impossible, risking even their lives for their dream. There is another flashback of Sanji saying, if you already know the outcome, why didn't you give up? It's simple, he screams, just let go of your ambitions. This highlights a stark contrast between Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji at this point. These scenes are all paralleled with Sanji saving Luffy and Zeph's voice in the background repeating the words, you still can't do much against the one spear he has, someone who'd hold that same spear for his own foolish reasons. I understand what the spear reference means by now, although I still think these subtitles don't make much sense in terms of sentence structure, or maybe it's the grammar. I'm not sure. As a second language English speaker, if a sentence is not structured well, it can easily throw me off. But regardless, I like that these flashbacks and thoughts are all paralleled together. On one hand, it does show the difference in determination that characters like Luffy and Zoro have compared to Sanji. So, difference in determination at this point. But the fact that Sanji is saving Luffy shows that they all need to work together. I feel like it's foreshadowing that they need to work together to reach their individual goals. They need to learn from each other, support each other, and work together if they are going to make their wildest dreams come true. That's the feeling that I'm getting. During the Syrup Village arc, I remember saying that it looks like Nami and Luffy will be learning from each other through their travels together. This is what I said. Okay, so this is the quote. Nami and Luffy, at the moment at least, have pretty opposite beliefs about what it means to be a pirate. Luffy's beliefs are idealistic, whereas Nami's beliefs are cynical. It's actually kind of poetic that they have found each other and will journey together, as I'm sure they will find out that not everything is always the way it seems. In Nami's case, her cynical beliefs were challenged once she met Luffy and Zoro, pirates that went against her idea of what pirates are. In Luffy's case, his idealistic beliefs were challenged by Kuro and his crew. He got to see them more in the way that Nami sees them. Pirates that proved to him not all men of the sea were as great as the ones who inspired him. Episode 29 made me think too that Sanji will learn a lot from the others while traveling with them, just like they will also learn from Sanji. They are all good at different things. Nami is good at navigation, Sanji is a cook, and all that kind of stuff. Even though they each have their independent goals, there is no way they'd be able to reach them on their own. You have to work with others. You have to find your crew in order to move forward in life. I don't think people are meant to be alone. We are stronger when we work together. This is something that I also learned from Fairy Tail. The bonds between the guild members, it's what makes a guild stronger and also what makes the individual member stronger. That way they can go so much further even if they don't have the same goals in life. I actually saved the following pictures as one of the most important life lessons I've ever learned, and it's from Fairy Tail. It's a scene from, I think, one of the very early episodes in this last season that is currently airing. It says, "Friends are people who share the same goal and move forward together. No, they can even have different goals. They grow to smile together, support each other, and trust each other. But it's that bond that has always been my salvation." Even though this is from Fairy Tail and it may irritate some people that I talk about this at all during a One Piece video, I purposefully wanted to bring it up because it seems like a lot of One Piece fans don't like Fairy Tail, and that's fine. But I did want to point out that I know Hiro Mashima, the creator of Fairy Tail, did work underneath Oda for some time. Maybe as an apprentice or something, I'm not too sure what about or how they were linked, but I know that Mashima did learn from Oda at some point, and it is possible that One Piece and the themes interwoven into the anime inspired Mashima to create Fairy Tail in a similar way that Shanks inspired Luffy to become a pirate. Just like the adventures of real pirates and people from real life inspired Oda to write One Piece, and a lot of his characters are based off real people or inspired by aspects of real people, I feel like instead of hating Fairy Tail for taking inspiration from, sorry my sentence isn't good there, from One Piece, it should rather be looked at like a compliment. The story of One Piece inspired another manga creator to write his own story with his own characters that also reached a lot of people, including myself. Even though Fairy Tail is not nearly as big as One Piece, if it wasn't for Fairy Tail and a few other anime that I got into 2 years ago, I wouldn't be here today watching anime, doing reviews, and being inspired by it myself to create content, make friends, and talk about One Piece, the characters and the things it makes me think about. So I just wanted to say that I am grateful to Oda for most likely inspiring another mangaka like Mashima, and probably many others too, to create an anime like Fairy Tail, which inspired me to want to make this channel. Otherwise, I would not have met so many of you who I now consider my friends and who are literally the reason I am excited to get up every single day. I just really wanted to share that little piece of personal history with you guys and the reason why I am here. Back to One Piece, I just thought about this while reading my notes. about this part. You have to work with others. You have to find your crew in order to move forward in life. Nami, it looks like, based on the end of episode 29, when she was, I don't know, going to wherever she was going, she says like she wishes she could meet up with them one day and they'd travel together. And she's talking about Luffy and them. And I just wonder, you know, she didn't trust them enough at that point yet. She couldn't trust them enough, probably for whatever reason, that she could ask them. She knew how nice they were, but she couldn't ask them, listen, this is something I need to do. Could you help me? At that point, she wasn't ready. She didn't see them like nakama, you know, like Luffy saw her. So I just feel like this is something that she's going to learn eventually. You can't, whatever goal you have in your mind, it's almost impossible to reach those things by ourselves. We need our guild, we need our crew members, we need our nakama. And Fairy Tail also uses the word nakama a lot, and I've heard tons of other anime use it, and I don't know if that's inspired by Oda. Maybe a lot of anime is took an inspiration from One Piece. I mean, this is an anime that is 20 years old, so I just felt like I needed to point out, you know, just because you don't like an anime for whatever reason, don't forget that there are other people that feel about certain anime that way that you feel about One Piece. And it is something that means a lot to me, and I would like if I could see less One Piece fans with One Piece profile pictures and One Piece names commenting on my Fairy Tail videos and saying how shit the story is, how shit the characters are, how shit this is, how shit that is. I'm not asking you to like Fairy Tail, I'm just sharing with you why I love it. And I'm asking you to stop commenting those kinds of things on my Fairy Tail videos, because it is also an anime that I love, and I wouldn't be here making these videos if it wasn't for anime like Fairy Tail. Okay, I kind of love the scene where Don goes crazy. I'd love to discuss his character in more detail and hear from you all what you thought about him, but at the same time I'm a little worried. I don't know if I want to know if we're going to meet Krieg, Gin and the rest of his crew again at some point. I knew based on how many people talked about loving Buggy that he was definitely going to appear again later and probably play a big-ish role, but that was also pretty obvious a little bit later since he was given a backstory and it is linked with Shanks. So it's not really a spoiler because the second or third episode where we got to meet Buggy, his backstory was shown, so it's pretty obvious from that we are definitely going to see him again. But from the very first episode with Buggy, people were already saying, you know, he's one of the best villains or one of their favorite characters, something like that. And that obviously is going to tell me, okay, so we're going to see him again, and he's not as bad as, he's not really a villain, even despite everything I'm seeing him doing. I shouldn't look at him as a villain because he's some people's favorite character. But it doesn't matter, like I said, because the backstory was shown, so it is pretty easy to figure out by yourself. I think people have made me paranoid about spoilers at this point, but not everything should be considered a spoiler. It's not like knowing if a character may or may not appear later is going to lessen my enjoyment of the story, and I also don't know when the character will pop up again. So like, it's not gonna, even if I know something's gonna happen, I still need to see the story unfold and how it unfolds, you know? That's where the enjoyment comes in. So yeah, I'd like to know from you all at this point in the anime, without taking into account anything I may or may not learn later, what did you think about Don Krieg at this point? And maybe Gin too, if you have the time. I myself think Kuro was a more interesting villain, or maybe a more villainous villain, because Krieg and Gin are definitely interesting. Like, there's a lot that I can talk about. I like that Krieg is a character that contrasted his kind of strength with Luffy's kind of strength. Him and Luffy had the same goal after all. It's just that I prefer Luffy's way to go about that dream, if that makes sense. Krieg was not the kind of person I like, personally. I often need to remind myself that this is an anime about pirates, and it's set in a completely different world from my own. So it's not like the same principles always apply. But based on who I am and my own beliefs, I prefer Luffy's strength, a strength that comes from within. Even, yeah, if it's given by a devil fruit, it's still, it's Luffy, it's his special power. Like, we all have our special power, even though it's not a devil fruit, but you get what I'm saying. Luffy's character and, like I said, the way he goes about chasing his dream, or goal is a better word. That's why I prefer Luffy to a character like Don Krieg. I mean, that's excluding the fact that, hello, Luffy is the MC, he's the main character. But considering that Luffy and Don have the same goal, essentially, you know, and you could make an anime about both these characters. I would feel like, you know how Overlord is about this anti-hero, Don Krieg could have been the MC of his own anime and he could have been the anti-hero of that, because he's definitely not a good guy. But my point is just that even in real life, I would prefer, you know, a person like Luffy over a person like Don. Question for everyone. What do you all think of Gin's words? I'm not sure when Don Krieg's ambition became my own. I want to hold off on my opinion for now as much as I can. Maybe I'll edit my notes on it later or add some of your comments in here. At first I felt like he was just screamed at enough to want the same thing for Don Krieg that Krieg always spoke about. But then I thought, isn't it also a worthy dream to want to be someone else's best supporter? Or like, some people want to be famous actors and some people want to manage famous actors. Kind of like helping others to achieve their dream is your dream. Me, for a time in my life, I really wanted to be a life coach because I felt like I figured out myself and my dreams really late in life. I felt like, almost like, well, it's too late for me, maybe I can help other people figure out their dreams. So I studied life coaching for quite a while because I wanted to help other people figure out their dreams sooner and be able to achieve them. So yeah, I don't think Gin's mind was necessarily molded into submission. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. He just came to really respect Don's strength and then wanted the best for him. What are your thoughts on this? I'll post a couple of comments in my notes that make sense to me or sounds plausible. I can think of another example. I've told you guys in the past about when I was younger and there was like a girl that I knew. She was like my parents' friend's daughter, and sometimes she'd babysit me and I would kind of watch anime over her shoulder. She's the reason I started to crack my knuckles. She's the reason I started drawing. I became like a very artistic person because I saw her draw and I wanted to draw. I saw her watch anime and I wanted to watch anime, and that's how it all started, you know. And it's not that it's because of her that I am who I am. It's because of her that I was inspired to see things that I already resonated with. Like, she had a sister that was into dancing and beauty, and I could just as easily have been inspired by that, but because there was something that resonated with me through her passions, I kind of latched onto her. So it's not that necessarily, at first I thought Gin is only once, like when he said, I'm not sure when Don Krieg's ambition became my own. At first I thought immediately, well, yeah, obviously if you were screamed at every day and, you know, treated the way you are, you're gonna want the same things he wants because he keeps telling you that's what you want. You're gonna, your crew is gonna be this and you're gonna do this and da 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 da. So, but, you know, it doesn't have to be that. Maybe Gin already had that ambition within him and it was just kind of inspired and awakened by Don. Gin says that Krieg taught him the following: when your mind's made up, you eventually pay less attention to things like being scared of a strong enemy or how not to get yourself injured. Although I can understand Krieg must have a strong mentality, and yes, these thoughts may have taught his men a lot of valuable lessons, I can't wrap my head around Gin still following Krieg. If Krieg wakes up, will he really be okay with what Gin has done? Knocked him out, taken him away, like, since he was the one that told Gin to kill himself the episode before, and he shot so many of his own men, how are they just going to start over? Phew, it really is breaking my head how people can follow a man like him, but this is a pirate's world. I'm sure there will be many things I won't understand. But that is definitely not going to stop me thinking about it. Someone asked me the other day about, you know, anime and why I like one character that is kind of like an anti-hero and I don't like another character, or I'm so, like with One Piece, I really pick apart, you know, the morals and all that kind of stuff behind the characters and their ambitions and stuff. And in other anime, for example, the one that was brought up is My Hero Academia, where I absolutely love Bakugo, even though he does awful things. So why, the person asked, I think it was Assimilator, he asked, why do you pick apart one type of character but you totally accept that character? And I told him that for some anime, I watch it with a different mindset. Some anime really resonates with me and it inspires a lot of conversation from me. So like with One Piece, I sit down and I make these notes and I think about everything because that's the kind of anime it is. It inspires all these things for me. And I knew going into One Piece that, you know, Oda was this amazing writer. So I went in with the mentality of, can't wait to see what this writer does and how he does things, because like I said, I am I see myself as a creative kind of person. I've written stories in my past. I've even written fan fiction, and also my own stories and all kinds of stuff. Like I paint and I draw. Not as much anymore. I don't have time, but that's, you know, who I grew up as. And yeah, so I was really excited to start watching the story that was written by this legendary person. So I entered One Piece with a very different mindset than I entered My Hero Academia. I actually binge watched a lot of My Hero Academia, the first, like, I don't know, 60 episodes, I'm not sure. And I watch it in a much more, you know, enjoyable way. I don't really review or pick it apart and stuff like that. I just watch it because I enjoy it. And oftentimes we love the villains. We love the anti-heroes. It's fine. Like, what about Mirai Nikki, My Future Diary, or The Future Diary, whatever. There's a character called Yuno. She's 100% like yandere queen, and I love her. Would I love her in real life? Of course not. But that's not the mindset I am in when I'm watching Mirai Nikki or My Hero Academia. But I do watch One Piece in a different way. I'm experiencing it from a different... I'm more into One Piece, if I can put it that way. So that's why in some anime I would totally not excuse bad behavior, but just not talk about it, or, you know, pick it apart. In Afrikaans the word is ontleed, but I don't know what that in English is. Let's quickly see. Ontleed. Analyze. Yeah. So I won't analyze stuff in My Hero Academia the same way that I analyzed it in One Piece, because I feel differently about One Piece than I do about My Hero Academia. Another thing that was said in that conversation is, just because I feel differently about One Piece versus My Hero Academia doesn't mean other people don't feel differently about My Hero Academia. There is another person that watches My Hero Academia and really loves it and is very inspired by the themes and the things in the same way that I'm inspired by One Piece. She's inspired by My Hero Academia. So it's not that you can't find that kind of, you can't analyze. It's not that you can't analyze My Hero Academia. It's just that I choose not to, whereas I do choose to do this for One Piece, because I feel differently about the anime and where it's going, you know? Okay, sorry for all the babbling. I try and keep my notes as short as possible, but I always end up just going off the rails. Episode 30, Departure. C, Chef, and Luffy travel together. At the start of episode 30, Luffy asks Sanji again about whether Sanji would consider joining his crew. Sanji says he can't. He says he will stay until Zeph acknowledges his skill. Until Zeph acknowledges his skill. In the episode, Sanji does hear Zeph and the other cooks acknowledge that his food is good. So I wonder if Sanji decided to leave because of that, or because he always knew they knew his food was good. Like, he knew his food wasn't bad. But maybe he left because he was just using that as an excuse not to go. But seeing how much they wanted him to follow his dream, maybe that finally gave him the courage to go for it. What are your theories on why Sanji didn't want to go at first, but ended up leaving by the end of the episode? What was the turning point? I believe he always knew his food was good, and that it was always just banter between chefs, then them saying to each other that their food isn't good. Because Sanji also said that to Patty, Patty said it to Sanji. You know, I don't think he ever believed that they didn't think his food was good. For me, I think Sanji was bound by his debt to Zeph. He felt he couldn't follow his own dream because he still felt guilty about taking away Zeph's dreams. But this is a child's logic, almost like a lot of children blame themselves for their parents' divorce. Zeph did what he did for Sanji and it was his own decision. It's not like Zeph ever held Sanji accountable for choosing to sacrifice his leg to save his life. I think all of that guilt was only in Sanji's mind. The moment when Sanji heard them talking about wanting him to go was in a sense what lifted that guilt and shifted it into gratitude only. Not guilt anymore, but gratitude for what Zeph did. And by feeling grateful and not guilty anymore, he was able to go after his own dream, leaving the Bharati behind. Okay, next part. I love how Yosaku used a shark to get back to the ship to tell Luffy about Nami and where she is headed. I was like, what the? Sometimes, even though this is clearly not a realistic anime, although it has many themes and messages that are applicable in real life, because the fights are heavily exaggerated and there are characters with mystical, magical powers, somehow that still shocked me for a minute that he traveled via shark. I wonder why Oda chose to do that and not to let them all come back to get Luffy. It probably has something to do with the next arc. Maybe Zoro and Usopp catch up with Nami first and then Luffy will swoop in at some point, at some important moment to save the day. Who knows? I just found the shark very funny and look forward to why Oda chose to let Luffy and Sanji travel so far behind them. It sounds like Yosaku said they lost sight of Nami or didn't catch up with her anyway, but they knew which way she was headed, which is why I think there has to be a reason Oda chose to send back only Yosaku for story purposes. I'm looking forward to finding out why. I'm not sure if I look forward to the next arc so much. It makes me kind of nervous. Many people have said it's the best arc for them in the East Blue Saga. I don't know what the East Blue Saga is, but probably all the arcs in the East Blue arc, overarching arc. Yeah, so they've said it's their favorite one. So what if I don't like it? Will they be mad at me? Even though these are thoughts that cross my mind and I do worry about negative comments, I am only human after all, I won't let it affect my opinion. I will still be honest with my reaction and when I share my thoughts on each episode. Another thing about this episode, it really brought out Sanji's teenage side. He's only 19 after all, and this episode really showcased his personality quite well. I think it helps that there were no girls around, so he didn't act like a besotted idiot. As much as I started to love his character in this episode, like really love, because of, I don't know, just in these two episodes I felt about Sanji, I was like, oh my gosh, I really love him. He's so amazing. His backstory is so amazing. And yeah, I think he's freaking cool because I have this, I don't know, a thing for guys that smoke but that look cool doing it. I don't know, maybe. Do I? I don't know. As much as I started to love his character in this episode, I know when he's around girls and he acts the way he did around Nami, it's going to make me dislike him in those moments. Oh, what fun that will be. I love how Luffy chooses not to take Zeph's notebook. He's going to do it 100% on his own. Forge his own path, not influenced by anyone else's. So that makes me really excited. And just adds to my love for Luffy's character. Now we're closing the end of the notes. There's just two more points. One that's quite important. Okay, I also had that talk about Sanji and his smoking halfway during the reaction. Remember when I said, you know, someone mentioned, why do I think Sanji smokes? Someone asked me that in the in one of my videos. And I said what I said on it in the reaction already, but these are what some of my patrons said. Matthias says, another great reaction. Fun fact, in the manga, the scene with Nami crying is just after Zoro challenging Mihawk to fight him. Sanji hates when Zeph calls him a kid, so he started smoking to show Zeph that he isn't a brat anymore. Then it became his habit. It wasn't shown in the anime, so kids wouldn't think that smoking equals being an adult. I can't wait for another arc. Okay, so he's saying that I said what I said about it. The person that asked the question in the first place talked about, you know, starvation and how smoking takes away hunger pangs. Matthias says it was to prove to Zef that he isn't a brat. He's growing up. Sam said it's actually incredibly common to smoke a lot for a lot of chefs in particular. I'm pretty certain that's the reason behind Sanji smoking and not a lot more. Vinicius Almeida says Eiichiro Oda puts many references to pop culture in One Piece, so the character of Sanji was inspired by the character Mr. Pink of Reservoir Dogs, a Tarantino film, so the fact of his smoking is also reference to the movies of Tarantino, where there are always scenes of the character smoking. So there's another reason. And then Sebastian says, hi, I think you're overthinking why Sanji smokes. First of all, please never tell me I'm overthinking something, because there's no point to that. It's really fun to find out everyone's different reasons for why they think Sanji smokes. It's really fun for me to talk about it. So, you know, I don't have to do these reviews. I know that there are people saying, oh, just watch another episode, don't do the review, what's the point of the review, you're wasting so much time. And I'm doing the reviews because that's part of what I love about anime. A lot of anime, like One Piece, like I said before, inspires these kinds of thoughts, and I love talking about them. So, you know, even if you think it's overthinking, it's actually so much fun to find out all these different reasons people think Sanji smokes. Sebastian himself says, in an SBS, Oda responded to a fan asking if the Straw Hats were real, what nationality would they be? Sanji would have been French. It is a common representation around the world, especially Japan, where they think French men are good lovers, good cooks, and smoke a lot. Just go anywhere around the internet and you'll see dozens of this representation about France and French people from strangers. And Sebastian says he's French. So yeah, I understand that there could be different reasons for why Sanji smokes, and maybe some of the reasons are why Oda chose, like, that is why he chose to make Sanji a smoker. Some of the reasons may be true, some of the reasons may just be coincidence, but it's still fun to talk about. Fun fact, this was commented by Emil Gumus on my Patreon as well. The Green Data book revealed that Sanji's original name was going to be Naruto. However, as the ninja manga Naruto was about to begin serialization in Shonen Jump, Oda changed the name to prevent confusion. So that's really interesting, just a fun fact. I don't know what the Green Data book is, but I thought it would be interesting for you guys to know too. That is it for my notes for today, or for these 2 episodes. I did talk to some of my patrons, and they said that I wanted to do 3 episodes for the next arc, if I can, obviously, because it's the start of a new arc. I wanted to do 3 episodes, but a lot of patrons said the best way to do it would be 2, 2, 3, because that it links well together, and I appreciate that. It helps me to do the videos in a good way, in a sense that makes sense, you know. So I think the next videos will be 2, 2, 3. Trust me, if I could do 4, I would do 4, but it would just take too long to post the video, because the editing and the notes you guys would have to wait too long. So rather just 2 at a time, it'll be fine. Thank you guys so much for listening to my thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts. I know I asked a lot of questions. You don't have to answer all of them. But you can if you want to. I don't mind multiple comments, answering my multiple questions. In fact, the more comments, the better for the video. The interaction is really what helps my videos out. And I will do my best to go through as many as I can after my mods go through them and make sure spoilers are deleted. Thanks again, everyone. I really love these 2 episodes, and I really love this arc. I'm going to miss Zef and Patty and Karn. But I hope we can see them again one day. See you guys in the next video. Bye!